Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I am Chris Clements.
Here it is, Thursday, May 2nd.
May 2nd. We survived May Day.
We survived May Day.
Do you have anybody in your family that celebrates May Day?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, yeah, my mother-in-law does.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah, she does. So, Anne, I hope you had a great May Day. She listens to the show. She gets very upset at us because she's incredibly liberal.
Well, hello, Anne. And I hope you had a great May Day.
Yeah.
Well,
I had to explain what May Day was to my kids yesterday.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you who's celebrating some May Day is all these crazies on the campuses.
You know, Marxism is alive and well, and it's alive and well on these genocidal pro-Hamas protesters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's like 1968 all over again.
Yeah,
the comparisons are abounding.
Well, and the thing that's interesting, so just today, Biden has finally made a comment.
Oh yeah,
he
made a comment from the teleprompter.
Calls for calm.
Calls for calm.
So he finally
calls for calm from the multicolored tent campouts.
Right. He
funded by our friend and yours, George Soros.
So he said, where was it? Oh man, I just lost it. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduation. None of this is a peaceful protest, threatening people, intimidating people. Dissent is essential to democracy, but dissent must never lead to disorder. No, solid quote, but late.
Yeah, like at least like
2 weeks.
2 weeks, 3
weeks,
maybe since October 6th. 7th,
yeah,
since October 7th, maybe that late.
But it is. I mean, this is a coordinated effort. This is funded by left-wing dark money. All you have to do is look at.
I thought you were the prince of dark money. Well, there's actually left-wing dark money.
No, there's a lot more left-wing dark money.
Well, I mean, I mentioned his name before, and that's George Soros.
Yeah. So there's just a bunch of different groups that are involved in this.
Oh, and the Rockefellers too, apparently.
Yep. And. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you see the same style of tent being put up across the country.
Green and blue and blue and green and green and blue
with the
black
green
and
with the green.
It's a little too obvious there, George.
So, So some universities have handled it fairly well. Some have done it very poorly.
Like UCLA.
Yeah.
I mean, blocking Jewish students from going to class openly and being filmed. I mean, that's a civil rights violation.
100%. Yeah, these were
white
men blocking a African American man from going to class.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
How much do you think these colleges are going to get sued for? Just for the Civil Rights Act?
Well, that's a great question. I suspect
it's been posed in some other sites, and I think there's a lot there.
Yeah, I suspect that's going to be coming down the pike. But I think that what will be more interesting is it is becoming more and more clear that going to an elite school is a complete waste of money.
Oh, absolutely.
But
it doesn't matter as long as your loan is forgiven by Joe Biden.
Well, and a lot of these, Columbia, Harvard, Princeton, they have some pretty large endowments. So maybe they'll weather this storm, but it's not going to be good for higher learning and the higher learning institutions, higher education.
It's not going to be really good for the students who participated in this,
right? And
by the way, that Goldman Sachs internship this summer
it's
from Columbia, you might want to rethink that.
Yeah, it is, and I think there's probably some students that have been arrested that are like rethinking their life story a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Thinking, my choices, maybe this wasn't such a great idea.
There was some kind of meme the other day that I saw that some kid was getting arrested outside Columbia. And it said, "I can't get arrested. I have finals this week."
Then why did you take over the building?
Oh
you
gosh,
moron!
That is great. I can't get arrested. I have finals.
Wait, you can't do this to me.
Yeah.
For example, here at ASU, there were 70-something people arrested, but only 15 were students.
Yeah,
I think.
The outside agitator argument, I think, is very real. Obviously, it's it's all coordinated. And you have people there who are pros who are teaching students who are Marxists in their worldview how to do this, how to execute this.
And I think that there's probably plenty of students who aren't really Marxists. They just need a place to be, and
they
can be accepted there because
they need their diaper changed
because
every
no
once
one
in a
else will. They didn't get invited to the party, so they're going to go make be a part of this party.
They're just a bunch of Sandy Cortezes.
No, you're wrong. She's way too attractive to be a part of one of these.
Well, there was that one.
These protesters are not that attractive.
No, that was made clear by. I was listening to Megyn Kelly the other day, and she was like, "These people are some of the ugliest people I've ever seen." At least, at least be presentable.
Well,
when you're demanding food to be delivered to Hamilton Hall.
That is the role playing of the oppressed victim that they're trying to take upon. I mean,
that had to be.
Go spend a week in Gaza, for gosh sakes. I mean, you have no idea. Somebody actually I saw somewhere that maybe it was Elon Musk said if you replace the American flag with another flag, then it should be a one-way ticket to wherever that is the flag that you raise. So of all these people raising the Palestinian flag, go there.
Well, that goes to another issue which nobody wants to talk about, and that is the international students who are here on student visas who are participating in these so-called protests need to be deported.
Yeah,
they need to be expelled, and they need to be deported immediately.
Well, and I
sent home and said bye-bye.
And it's not just the internet.
And they won't do it.
I think anybody who every university has a code of conduct that you sign, right? There's certain guidelines that you have to follow. There's no way that taking over a building and doing this kind of protest meets those guidelines or is within prohibiting people from going to class, that kind of thing. It's one thing to stand out, hold a sign and yell in the common area, but to do the encampments and those kinds of things, they should be expelled.
Well, but the problem
Everyone that's involved should be expelled.
The university administrators, agree in principle with what they're what they're doing and what they're trying to achieve on these left-wing campuses.
Or they're afraid of the tenured professors who totally agree.
Yeah,
right.
And they're speaking out very much in favor of this and creating professor shields to harbor the little terrorists. Contrast that, however, to what's going on in Florida and Texas, where I believe Governor DeSantis made a very clear statement that these campuses are not daycares.
Yeah. Well, University of Florida's statement said this is not a daycare.
Yes. That was University of Florida. I thought it was attributed to DeSantis, but
that was Ben Sass.
That was
President University of Florida.
This is not a daycare, and you will be arrested, and you've been warned countless times.
Right.
So, and what we saw in Texas, the breakup of the protests, almost immediately, 70 people arrested. Boom.
Yep.
It's over. And that's the way it should be done.
Well, yes, and that's the thing that there has to be. Look, every college is going to make their own decision about how they deal with this, but you have to then live with the consequences.
Absolutely.
The universities who acted quickly and decisively are not going to have these problems as much as what these other universities who've allowed this stuff to just fester. How in the world do the administrators of Columbia justify allowing this building to be taken over?
Yeah.
And spending as much time, and then, of course it looks crazy when the cops have to come in and, pull people out of the building because you let them take it.
Yeah.
And keep it for a week.
Did you see AOC's tweet on that?
I can't believe that they're sending in
nobody,
SRG.
not one student should be harmed. And I'm like, no, actually, they probably should be harmed.
Well,
when you look at what they did to the building and how they trashed it, meanwhile, my alma mater, my illustrious Southern California alma mater, canceled commencement.
Yeah. Which is insane.
Which is crazy.
UCLA's going
nuts.
And it is. I really do feel for the USC students. As you know, I was over there a couple months ago to talk to class with some seniors who are supposed to be graduating, and now that's been ripped away. And these are kids who didn't get a high school graduation.
Yes, that's the point.
Because of COVID.
That's the point. USC should rethink that.
Absolutely.
And first of all, you don't declare a radical, Hamas-loving, genocidal valedictorian. You don't do that in the first place.
Well, I mean,
and that's where it all came from. They finally figured out their mistake. The provost rescinded it, and then the CARE and the rest of them started rioting.
If she deserves to be valedictorian, let her give her speech. It's fine. We're all adults. We can handle it. I mean, I don't think they should have rescinded it, and they certainly shouldn't have canceled graduation.
No, never.
And they've only heightened the tensions and the problems.
Yeah.
I mean,
but you should use a little bit more judgment ahead of time.
Well, look, like I said, I don't know how they determine valedictorian.
I have no idea either.
I'm assuming it's based on grades and GPA and all that stuff. And she came out on top. I mean,
there were several candidates apparently.
But it's a
do your research. Have some discernment.
I disagree. I don't think you can say you can't be valedictorian because I don't agree with your politics.
Oh, I think you can in this day and age.
No,
at the University of Southern California, sure you can.
Well, of course you can there because they did, but but shouldn't.
Well, you can.
I mean, I don't care if she's a Hamas lover. If she was the one who earned the role of valedictorian, she earned it.
See,
I mean,
that's where we disagree.
All right.
Yeah, if she's loving on Hamas and making these outrageous statements online that are anti-Semitic, no, I don't think she should be the valedictorian. That was a mistake, and then they paid for it on the back end because they managed it improperly.
Look, I think that she could have been valedictorian, give her commencement speak, let the students who disagree stand up and turn their backs, whatever, do the regular protest that happens to normal people all the time.
Yeah, perhaps.
So.
I don't think that would have been the case, though.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how some of these commencement speeches by high-profile folks goes in the coming weeks. Jerry Seinfeld's giving one. I'm sure Kamala Harris is giving one. It'll be interesting to see how these things go because this is not going away.
No,
and
it's going to be a big issue for Joe
I think
Biden.
I think this is going to hurt Democrats in November.
Well, it goes along with law and order, respect for the rule of law, all that which Democrats have thrown out the window.
But it's also just the blatant racism against Jewish people.
Well, that too. I mean,
it's just amazing.
that little thing called anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable.
But well, we have our own problems in this state.
Well, yeah, that's true. Wait, there was something. Oh, well, you wanted to mention Biden now has when he walks from the White House to the helicopter.
Well, you mentioned Biden in a statement, and obviously he read that fully and completely off the teleprompter, which I commend him for that. But in the meantime, if he had to go out to Marine One, he's surrounded by handlers who make sure that he doesn't trip.
They don't let him walk to Marine One alone.
So you've been very, very consistent over the last several months that you do not believe Joe Biden's going to make it to November.
Yeah,
you just think that it won't even be the October surprise; it'll be the August surprise.
Yeah,
that they will replace him at the convention.
That's still my belief.
And this makes it even more so. I think not just with his health issues, but what's going on campus.
But you also and what's going on
and
campus,
the way he's handled.
But you also look at the numbers, the polling. So RFK Jr. did a big presentation either yesterday or the day before, basically saying that Biden is the spoiler. And he made that argument because he pointed out that Biden loses to Trump in a head-to-head and Biden loses to Trump in a three-way. Trump, Biden, JFK Jr. Or RFK Jr.
RFK Jr.
RFK Jr. made the argument that in a head-to-head with Trump, he can win.
He could win.
I have my doubts about that because one of the states that he claims as his electoral college victory was Utah. Utah's not voting Kennedy over Trump if it's a head-to-head between Kennedy and Trump.
That'd be like saying West Virginia is going to carry him over the finish line.
Yeah, right. So
not going to happen.
But so he then said that he wanted to make a deal with Biden where they do a spoiler pledge where they do a 50-state poll in October, and whoever is losing drops out.
Biden's never. Well, if he's even there, but
yeah. But what it goes to,
I had not heard
what
that.
It shows.
That's amazing.
So this is a John Zogby poll, and he's a legit pollster. He did a 50-state poll.
Yeah, Zogby and Rasmussen are probably the best.
26,000 respondents, and Trump wins in a landslide. Electoral college.
Well, you saw the CNN poll that CNN refused to report on.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. And Trump was up 49-43.
And that's
CNN.
national. And that's a national
that's
poll.
A national poll.
That's not even talking. I mean, that's not the state by state, which
that's
is
not a swing
the more
state
important. So things are going to get dicier for Biden and the Democrats, and it's going to get harder to justify keeping him on the ticket when it's going to be obvious that even with Trump's challenges on the legal front, he is likely to prevail.
Which you can argue now are helping him, not hurting him.
Well,
but I think there's a general consensus, even the New York Times, we said it last week, saying this trial going on in New York is a joke. Well, there's no legal basis for any of it.
Right. It is a joke.
Even if they convict him, he's gonna win on appeal, no problem.
Yeah. But more importantly, all the other stuff that he's been indicted on, none of that stuff is going to come to fruition before the election. This is literally the only trial that's going to get finished.
And Jack Smith's case on immunity, there will be a very narrow ruling on that, I think, from the Supreme Court. Because the stakes are even higher than the Trump presidency.
Well, there's two things on the Supreme Court still has to that are pending.
I'm glad we're talking about it.
That is the immunity, and that is the obstruction.
Mm-hmm.
Which hundreds of these J6 prosecutions have been based on, obstruction of an official proceeding. And if the Supreme Court rules the way some people think they might, there's a whole bunch of those charges are going to have to be thrown out, and either the government's going to have to, basically say, okay, never mind.
They'll have to release them from the gulag.
Or they'll have to retry them.
Yeah, it's a joke.
And so it's going to get all this.
Well, the immunity case I've been watching really closely because I think it's vitally important for our republic that the president have maybe not vast levels of immunity, but certainly for official acts, which I think is where they're going to rule, he must have immunity.
Yeah.
Or else we're going to go back and, you get some rogue, even on the right, attorney general, going to bring charges against Clinton, Bush, Obama, whomever. It'll be a free-for-all. We will then become a banana republic.
Yeah, yeah.
And the arguments on the arguments on the left are nonsensical in this. They're so focused on Trump and not the broader picture.
Right. That's the thing is everything they say in the context of Trump, you're like, but what if it's not Trump? What if we're talking about Obama?
Well, we're talking about Biden.
All of a sudden it's, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah. And then closer to home, we had the state Senate voted to repeal the pre-Roe abortion ban, and that will be signed by the governor today.
And what happens now?
So now, I think
there's a time that the current law stays in place.
So they
know the intricacies about this much.
Well, I don't know if I know the intricacies because it keeps changing because the legal maneuverings, particularly by the AG Chris Mays.
We need to have her on. Would you think she'd come on?
I don't know. Maybe. But she has asked the Supreme Court for various things. So at this point, the ban goes into effect right now on June 27th. That could be pushed back. The repeal doesn't go into effect until 90 days after the end of the session.
Yeah. So
there will be, perhaps, depending on what happens with some Supreme Court maneuverings with Chris Mays, there could be a period of time in which there is a ban. And then that'll eventually be, 90 days after the session is over, that'll be gone. Then we have the election, and there's the abortion initiative that we've talked about before that's, completely wide open, abortion anytime. And people will decide, do we keep what will then be the 15-week limitation, or is it a free-for-all?
Now, you were sharing with me earlier that you've been, attacked by some really ardent groups on this issue.
Well, I did not know this, but
and it's revealed some things to you that I didn't know.
Well, apparently, there's a group of people. I presume they're pretty small, but they're pretty vocal.
Yeah.
Who consider themselves abortion abolitionists, and they believe that the pro-life movement is satanic.
That's a big stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm now a tool of Satan.
You're a tool of Satan. in what respect are you a tool of Satan?
Well, I guess because I have
because you're personally pro-life.
Yeah.
Correct.
But
I think what we've tried to do is kind of thread the needle on the politics of this situation post-Roe.
Well, it's the politics but let's make it very clear. It's not a political analysis. It's not a political move. It is a using the political apparatus to reach the goal of fewer deaths. Fewer deaths of babies. And our argument has been that if the pre-Roe ban is in place when the election happens, then people will absolutely vote for the initiative that allows abortion on demand. They will elect a Democrat legislature to then work with a Democrat governor, and we will become California.
Yes.
And
the binary
and if
choice
that happens,
is something people are not.
If that happens, more babies die.
Yeah.
Period.
So, and we've been clear that what also the pro-life satanic, I can't believe that, should focus on are, funding and being supportive of crisis pregnancy centers, defunding Planned Parenthood, those type of things. And also protecting churches, synagogues, places where many women go for help on this issue,
and spending actual effort,
and not letting them burn down,
and spending actual effort on helping change hearts and minds about this issue.
Yes,
it's just it's long and hard. It's hard work, but it's got to be done because we will not stop killing babies in this country until we change people's hearts and minds.
And overall, because it's a state's issue now, we are winning. There's going to be extremes, and those extremes might hold for a time, but I don't think they hold for long term. I just don't. Because the polling on this says otherwise, and you got to think eventually it'll change.
Yeah, hopefully. Again, it's
going
to depend on how we approach this issue in trying to reach out to people in a loving and Christian way to help them change their heart and mind.
Yeah.
Shaming people is not going to work.
Nope.
And unfortunately, as has been evidenced if you look at my Twitter feed, where I am on this issue, on the strategy of saving more babies in the long run, I'm being shamed as a lover of abortion because of where I am on this.
Yeah, that's sad and wrong because it's not true.
You can't be pro-life. Well, my 8 kids.
Listen, the last legislature passed a bill, enshrining, a certain amount of weeks where it's allowed. That's where most of the world is. Other legislatures have gone as far as heartbeat bills, other types of, limitations. Laws are going to be somewhere in there. Other radical states like California are going to have.
Yeah, California, New York, Illinois.
What they have.
It's going to be a free-for-all.
But you've got to think over the long term, those will not hold.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
But unless we change our tone as the pro-life movement in general.
And I think your observation that the pro-life movement was vastly unprepared for the repeal Roe is absolutely correct.
Yeah,
in terms of from a political strategy, hearts and minds perspective.
Right. It was the least prepared for victory I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So.
Well, because it pivoted right to a federal ban.
Yeah.
And that's
not where
everyone is. So let's, the federal government certainly could do more on the crisis pregnancy side. Can certainly do less on
funding Planned Parenthood.
On funding Planned Parenthood. Right. But even when we've had majorities, when Republicans have had majorities, they refuse to do that. That's the frustration too.
Yeah, sure. Well, as I have said time and again to people, there are Republicans, there are Democrats, and there are appropriators.
Yes.
And when you have a majority and this is particularly true in the House, when you have and because it's almost always true in the Senate, there's always more appropriators than the margin of the majority.
Yeah.
But in the House, because there are 40 or 50 appropriators, maybe more, maybe 60 total between the Republicans and Democrats on each side. When you have a narrow majority, and the appropriators outnumber the margin, then you're always going to have more spending.
Yeah.
Because everyone's got their pet project, and so Planned Parenthood's going to get theirs, and
it's not the speaker's fault.
Right. Well, that goes to.
I think we got a couple more minutes left. We can talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, clicks and coin Republicans.
Yeah, clicks and coin Republicans.
And then when you put Matt Gaetz in there, you put chicks in there.
Yeah. Chicks, clicks, and coin.
Yeah.
Well, who knows what's going to happen with that investigation? So people understand there's an ethics investigation about whether he actually trafficked a 17-year-old woman.
Yes, he did. But the clicks and coin
allegedly,
yes.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene is likely to try to move forward with a motion to vacate on Speaker Johnson. The Democrats in the minority have signaled that they will not vote to vacate.
Not much of a minority.
So what they'll do is they'll table her motion to vacate. Is that what'll happen? There'll be a motion table. The Democrats will vote for that.
And how many people does she have right now supporting her?
Two. There are three total. It is Thomas Massey and Paul Gosar.
Yeah.
Who weirdly was not a part of the 8.
No.
And now he's part of the 3.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little FOMO.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what's going on there.
I think Biggs and Crane, right?
I've known Paul for a long time. I don't know if this is his brightest moment.
Well, everyone has their beef with whatever, but the fact is when you have a 1-vote majority, there is no room. It's not.
Yeah, you do. I mean, how can you explain to the little tiny minority there, the 3 people are trying to hold the whole Congress hostage? You are not. I mean, you have a majority, but you have very little wiggle room.
There's no.
So
wiggle
you
room.
either rise together or you hang together.
And if they vacate, then Johnson goes out. What next? Who's going to be there? Who are they putting in?
Yeah. What's the strategy?
I mean,
just like with McCarthy, there was no strategy.
Right. And guess what? What did we predict? I said we predicted that if McCarthy was removed, that spending would go up, that there would not be these conservative deals. And guess what? It's all come to pass. It's all come to pass.
Absolutely.
I told you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because McCarthy knew how to negotiate in a way that made sense. He knew where the bodies were buried on other people, and he used that to his advantage.
Yep.
Mike's new to this. He's a nice guy. He's probably our most conservative speaker. He doesn't have all the personal baggage that so many other Republican speakers before have had, which I think was used against them many, many times.
Yeah.
Certainly that's true with McCarthy, and that was true with others.
Yeah.
And he's cutting the deal the best he can with what he has. And
which is almost nothing.
Yeah, and if you had a 15-seat majority or a 30-seat majority that was so predicted, by the red wave, by us included, you would be able to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But and negotiate from a position of strength, but you don't have that.
Right.
And so don't blow up what you have to get what you want.
Right.
It's not going to work.
Because you're not going to get it.
You're not going to get it. If anything, people will lose more faith in you and you'll lose the majority. You should be focused on getting some things done that the American people want, including conservatives, including Republicans, including independents, because you want to build upon your majority.
You've got to grow the majority. Otherwise, you're going to lose the House. And, they do look, this is my prediction. If
you're making a prediction again.
If Marjorie Taylor Greene is successful and they vacate Mike Johnson, the House is gone.
Oh, of course.
Republicans will not keep the House. Their only chance is just to ride this out. You can replace Mike Johnson if you want as Speaker after the election. I mean, whatever.
Would he even want the job?
Well, who knows? But you've got to pull together so that you can at least grow your majority.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, have we exhausted all of our? I think we've recapped the week.
Right. And we'll be back next week for more.
We'll see if Joe Biden makes it.
Yeah, we'll see. All right.
Thanks for listening. God bless.
Take care.